Hey guys, today we're gonna talk about what a good knight and a bad bishop are, and we'll study a great example about how to win in a position where we have this strategic advantage. Keep watching. So this game was played between world champion Smyslov and Rudakovsky. The game was like this: d4, c5, Sicilian, knight f3, black is playing here e6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, black plays here knight f6, knight c3, and d6. And here we have this scheme with a Scheveningen variation in Sicilian defense. Bishop e2, bishop e7, and white is going to castle, black is going to castle 2, and bishop e3, knight c6. This is main line in Scheveningen, f4. In this position, the main line for black is a6. However, Rudakovsky is playing here queen c7, also a theoretical move in these positions, and here queen e1. In this position, usually white is going to start very strong and aggressive attacks on the king side, since they have a good control and space in the center, and they can advance the pawns. They also have the bishops, the queen going to the king side, the rook going or lifting over the third rank. So the position is interesting. Of course, black has some chances on the queen side. Also, when white starts advancing the pawns and attacking, they can create some weaknesses, and then black can get some compensation with these weaknesses. Well, in the game, black plays knight takes d4, bishop takes d4, and then e5. And here we're gonna make a pause because this move is going to be connected to what is going to happen next. Usually in Sicilian variations, black wants to play this idea to open the bishop and also to fight for the center. However, this move has a problem, and it is the backward pawn on d6 and also the outpost on d5 for white pieces. However, in these positions, usually when black has the two bishops on e6, e7, and the knight on f6, they can cover a little these weaknesses. For example, the bishop is a great defender of the backward pawn, and the bishop on e6 and the knight on f6 are great defenders of the outpost on d5. So if white puts the knight there, they can trade, and then white will recapture with a pawn, and they can avoid big problems defending that square that way. Keeping this in mind, let's see how the game continued. Bishop e3, black plays here bishop e6, and then this move f5 is blocking the center, is getting some space on the king side, but also is putting some pressure on this bishop. In the game, Rudakovsky is playing bishop c4. It seems like bishop d7 was a little better, planning bishop c6 and defending very well the outpost on d5. Well, after bishop c4, this bishop is one of the defenders, as we said, of d5. So clearly Smyslov is going to trade here. Black plays queen takes c4, and here we have one of the most interesting strategic moments of this game. Make a pause, try to find the move Smyslov is going to play here. I will say it and explain it right now. Smyslov is playing in this position the important, interesting move bishop g5. The idea with this move is to remove the defender of this square d5. If this knight is gone, then white knight will be on d5 for a long time. Black will have as the only minor piece the dark square's bishop, which is going to be a bad piece, because look at the black pawns in the center. They are blocked in dark squares, which means that bishop is going to be a bad piece. So we will have this mirror game with a great knight in an outpost for a very long time against a bad bishop, not moving too much over the board. And also we will have other things we will analyze later, but that's the main idea with this interesting move bishop g5. In the game, black plays rook f e8, and the next move, of course, bishop takes f6, bishop takes f6, and then again a logical move, knight d5. There are some ideas now with knight takes bishop and queen h4 attacking f6 and the rook lifting over the third rank. So at this point, black is going to play bishop d8. However, this pawn on c2 is hanging. We need to analyze what could happen after a move like queen takes c2. Well, in this position, white can just play rook f2, there are some threats with knight c7, so the queen should not go out of the c5. But anyway, after queen c5, white is playing rook c1, and they will be playing knight c7 very soon. So queen d4, knight c7, and white is getting the exchange up, and it seems like the position should be not too complicated to win as white. So there would be a clearly better position for white. Also, there are some options here, keeping the knight on d5 and staying with a good strategical advantage, but it seems like knight c7 is simple and good enough. So in this position, after knight d5, black is just going to play bishop d8, as we said, and the game continues with c3, protecting, avoiding the capture on c2, also controlling very well d4. Black plays here b5, then b3. This pawn on c3 is very well protected by our super knight on d5. Black is going to play here queen c5 check, king h1, and then rook c8. And here we have this situation with a good knight versus a bad bishop. That's great, but guys, how do we take advantage of this? How do we proceed in our own games when we have something like this on the board? Well, usually it's going to be a good idea to play on the side where you have a space advantage and try to create some weaknesses, open some lines over there. In this position, Smyslov has a lot of space on the king side. There are interesting ideas with rook f3, with queen going to the king side, maybe moves like g4, like f6. So that's what is going to happen in the next. He's going to open lines, create weaknesses over there, so he can display the activity of his better pieces. So the game continues with rook f3. Black is playing here king h8, and then this nice move f6, opening and creating weaknesses on the king side. Black takes, which is probably a mistake, but well, at this point the position is just too difficult. Maybe g5 was an option, but then rook h3, and yeah, this is not looking good for black anyway. Well, Rudakovsky is taking the pawn on f6, and then this move, queen h4. Black plays here rook g8 because white was planning like rook h3, and probably black is planning to defend with the rook on g7. However, here Smyslov is taking the pawn on f6, and black is playing rook g7. The game continues rook g3, and well, this is an interesting moment. There are some interesting tactics over here. In the game, Rudakovsky is taking the knight. But, for example, let's analyze queen f2. Putting pressure here, there is a pin, but here white is winning. There is mate in two moves. We start with the queen sacrifice on h7, and then rook g8. So white is winning after queen f2. Also, our options here, for example, bishop e7. So this line does not work. Okay, then this time we just play rook takes g7, and after king takes, queen takes pawn, and this is mate in the next. After king takes knight, also queen h6 is mate, and of course after king f8, then queen g8 is good enough. So the other option we need to analyze in this position is something like bishop b6. This time they are not blocking e7, so the king could escape. They are also protecting g8, so queen h7 does not work, but okay, there are options. This time white can just play rook h3, planning queen takes h7, and how can black stop this? This is winning for white. Now they don't have the option of removing the knight. So after rook h3, say queen f2, then queen takes, and rook takes a7. So in this position, as we said, Rudakovsky is taking the knight on f6, but this is already lost, because after queen takes f6, the rook has to come to g8, and then these pieces cannot move, and then white has a lot of pressure here, and also a rook over a1. So white is going to play rook d1. It's going to bring reinforcements just to win the game with this move. Black plays d5, rook takes g7, and well, here Rudakovsky resigned. The problem is that after rook takes e7, there is rook takes d5, attacking the queen, also attacking or threatening rook d8, and this is going to be decisive advantage for white after queen f8, rook d8, getting the queen. If you have any question or you want to share your experience or a link with a game about good knight versus bad bishop, feel free to write it in the comments. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Help my channel with some like if it was like that. Subscribe so you get notifications for my next videos. Never stop believing. See you in the next.